Hi, I'm Yaffi Lvova, registered dietitian nutritionist and owner of Baby Bloom Nutrition. And this is Naptime Nutrition every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Arizona time, which is currently 3 p.m. New York time, East Coast time, and GMT -7. So happy holidays to everyone. We are currently celebrating Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, winter solstice, and New Year's to come up. Sorry if I left out anyone because there's just a lot going on right now. So, today's topic is milk addiction, and this is a really big one. The person who suggested it actually was asking in regards to extended breastfeeding and how much your toddler should be eating while taking breast milk as a source of nutrition closer to the age of 2. And extended breastfeeding is 3, 4, 5 years old. I'm going to start by saying I am an advocate of extended breastfeeding. The breastfeeding relationship ends when the mother and baby decides when it should end, not when cultural pressures or in-laws or what have you decide that you're done. If you are okay with breastfeeding your toddler, go for it. I'm going to address that as well. It's a little bit more complicated because you don't know exactly how many ounces they're getting, but I will get into that. So the first thing is it's the holiday season, and if you have a friend who has some nutrition obstacles between pregnancy and toddlerhood, feel free to get my services for him or her. I do private and small group counseling online, on the phone, so wherever you are, I can help you. So when you have a toddler, they're moving toward a diet that looks more like an adult diet. I'm a big advocate of baby-led weaning, so I'm really for giving them complex flavors and textures right off the bat. But let's just say when you have a 2-year-old, regardless of your method, you're really moving toward a more adult diet with more complex flavors and textures. Your job as the parent is to introduce a healthy variety of food so that they are exposed to a lot of different colors and textures, etc. It's really important for socialization. It's important for their muscle development in their mouth. There are a lot of reasons. But overall, the rule of thumb is that if you provide a variety of different types of foods, over time, you're going to have a nutritious diet. You know, broccoli is healthy. It's always my favorite example. But if you had broccoli for every meal of every day, it would not be healthy because you would be missing out on other certain vital nutrients. So with your toddler, your job as the parent, and this is referencing Ellen Sater's division of responsibility, your job as a parent is to decide when, where, and what you are feeding your child, and their responsibility is if and how much, and I add to that the pace at which they eat. Because you're never, God knows, I would love for one of my toddlers to eat a little bit faster. It takes like 2 hours, but it's not good to pressure them. So, milk. Milk is really a hot button issue for a lot of reasons. One is the whole breastfeeding issue, extended breastfeeding, when do you start and stop, which I addressed. But also, do you introduce cow's milk? Do you introduce goat's milk, almond milk, hemp milk, rice milk? The list goes on, and there's coconut milk. The list goes on and on. So what is the healthiest for your baby? Well, that's for you to decide, and I did a different Naptime Nutrition segment on calcium, so go check that out. But regardless, milk, I'm going to refer to milk as, it's when I say milk in this Naptime Nutrition, I'm referring to cow's milk or goat's milk or breast milk. It's animal milk. I'm not referring to almond milk or the other vegan milks because they have very different nutrition composition and they're not going to apply the same as human milk or animal milk. So milk is an important source of nutrition in the toddler diet. It provides calcium, vitamin D, protein, and fat. It helps to build strong bones. There are a lot of benefits. It's very high in calories. And calories are, well, they're a good thing. Everyone needs calories, but especially for toddlers, they're growing a lot and you need to provide them adequate nutrition. And milk is a really good source, whether it's cow's milk, what have you. You do definitely want to be on whole milk if you're using cow's milk. And conventional wisdom is that at the age of 2, you can decrease to low-fat milk, whatever. I say whole milk, ideally organic, whole milk. Breast milk is always a good source of nutrition, whether you're 35 weeks or 35 years old, and not that I, as a 35-year-old, am drinking breast milk, but the point is that a lot of people believe that breast milk loses its nutritional value. It doesn't. Whether you're going to continue that breastfeeding relationship is between the mother and the child, but breast milk itself retains its nutritional value. It does still have a high content of protein, fat, calcium, and vitamin D, as well as probiotics, antibodies. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. So how much is too much? Well, milk is easy to drink. Whether it's from a bottle or from a breast, a child drinks it easily, and especially breast milk is very digested easily. So kids like it, and when you start them on milk, they tend to keep going with it. Oh, thanks for the thumbs up. They tend to keep going with it. It's easy for them. It's just easy nutrition. At 1 year old, they should be taking about 24 ounces of milk per day. At 2 years old, they should be taking about 16 ounces of milk per day. And at 3 years old, they're taking 8 to 12 ounces of milk per day. Just to put that in perspective, 8 ounces is a cup. A cup is the size of your fist, an adult fist. So that's what we're talking about as far as volume. When you are talking about breastfeeding, you don't know. Your breasts don't have little tick marks on them that tell you how much you're drinking. So what you can do if you're really concerned about your toddler taking in too much breast milk and derailing his other nutrition is go to a breastfeeding center. For instance, here we have the Arizona Breastfeeding Center, where they have a nursing room where you can weigh your child before and after a feed to get an idea of how much milk they're really taking in. When we're talking about breastfeeding a toddler, they could be taking in a lot of milk, but generally they nurse for 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. They're not actually taking in a lot of volume, and it's not as much concern that the amount of milk that they're getting from the extended breastfeeding is derailing their other nutrition. If you're concerned, definitely talk to your doctor about it, but you can weigh them before and after to see how many ounces they're still taking. What's the risk of having too much milk? If it's so good for you, it's so full of protein and fat and calcium and vitamin D, why is it bad? Well, if you have too much, you're going to be, it inhibits your absorption of iron. So you could have, as a consequence, iron deficiency anemia. You're also not going to get as much protein. Milk is a good source of protein, but if that is most of your diet, you're not going to be getting enough protein overall. You're also excluding fiber and other micronutrients. So the consequences of having milk as really the primary source of nutrition in your diet at this age is constipation, iron deficiency anemia, poor weight gain, or obesity, depending on the rest of the diet, depending on the context. Milk should be with the meal, not the meal. And I'm going to take that a step further. When you are transitioning from milk to solid food, when you have an infant you're breastfeeding or you're giving the bottle, as you start to transition to food, until about a year old, you're giving the milk first and then the food. And at that point, between 10 and 12 months, you start giving the food first and then the milk. And that's so that they don't take the milk, which they're used to and it's really familiar, they don't take that and then fill themselves up with it and not have room for real solid food. So you can give the milk after. Any other hydration during the day should be from water, which means that one of my tips I'm going to give you is don't have milk with the meal, have it right after the meal. And don't have it between meal. Have water between meals and nothing else. There's no need for other hydration. After age 1, get rid of the bottle and transition to a sippy cup. That's also going to help cut down on the milk because the bottle is a really easy way of getting milk for the child and they don't have to work for it at all, whereas with solid foods, they have to work for it a little bit more, so they might not take in as much as they would otherwise. And a way to transition is to swap 1 serving of milk with a cup and then increase from there. Your child should not fall asleep with a bottle of milk. It's bad for their cavities. It's also bad for their nutrition intake. As far as extended breastfeeding, since there's no bottle involved, you want to have a certain kind of a schedule. I'm not talking about when they're little. I'll get into scheduling with another nap time nutrition, but that is a plan, maybe next week. But you can say I'm breastfeeding in the morning and at night, or I'm breastfeeding before and after nap, or whatever. You make a schedule for yourself for what works for your family, and just be consistent with that. And that's a way to really control so they're not nursing all day and potentially throwing off the rest of their diet, which, as I mentioned, is unlikely an issue when you have toddlers. So what is extended breastfeeding? At least 1 year, and you end when the mom and the baby decide to. The reason someone might do extended breastfeeding is for comfort for the child as well as the mother. You get a hormone rush. Antibodies, it's easier digested, and when they're toddlers might be a primary source of nutrition when they're not feeling well. It's more easily digested, and it's possibly the only thing that's going to stay down when they're sick. There's actually a reduced risk for certain inflammatory diseases and cancer in the mother when you have an extended breastfeeding relationship. So that's something you might decide. The person who suggested this topic is having a problem with a 2-year-old who isn't eating a whole lot of solids and wants to nurse constantly. So what you want to do with a situation like that is to offer the food, offer the breast after, and maintain some kind of schedule so that the child gets used to the idea, we're nursing at this point, we nurse to go down for a nap, we nurse when we wake up from a nap. They know what the schedule is, and they know how to stick with that. If they are on the growth curve, on their growth curve, maintaining the growth curve that they have established, which I've gone over, I have a whole nap time nutrition on growth curve, then they're probably fine. If you really are concerned about their specific nutrition, that's something that I can work with you on. And please stay tuned next week for nap time nutrition. I'm going to be going over probably infant scheduling, feeding and sleeping, and the pros and the cons. So check me out on my website, babybloomnutrition.com, on Pinterest, www.pinterest.com/Yaffi, and you're on Facebook already. So have a wonderful, happy New Year, and I will see you next Tuesday for Naptime Nutrition. Thanks.